Hi, my name is Steven and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to know your limits, how to stop overextending yourself. As we get back into the normal grind of life, it's now more important than ever to know your limits and not overextend yourself in certain aspects of your life. Career, family, and personal obligations can overextend your time if you're not too careful. And if you do overextend yourself, you risk burnout in these aspects of your life. In my stages of life, I've often flirted and gone through overextension and or burnout. And let me tell you, it's never been fun, oftentimes taking months to recover from. It's a difficult process to come back from, and often not, you're more jaded than when you first burned out. And going through many cycles of burnout can affect your personality and motivation. It's really important in this context to know your limits and not overextend yourself. So ultimately that you can step back from stress and things that are out of your control. With knowledge and understanding of your limits, you can ultimately sustain your motivation and success in life. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about my background, my tips on knowing your limits, and my general thoughts. And before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, hit that notification bell if you like this content. And let's go. At the end of last year, I was completely overwhelmed with everything that I needed to do for my family and the current situation I was going through. With a challenging job and a new family member, things were definitely getting to my limits. I was routinely being tested to the limits of my capability, and let me tell you, that was not a fun exercise. My temper was short, I was less patient, and I was running on low sleep. In many cases, I was at or at the max of my capabilities each and every night. And yet, I had the feeling that I had to do more, especially for my job. I was feeling a little bit guilty by taking paternity leave before the birth of my child. But at one point, it dawned on me that I wasn't being reasonable, especially with myself and what my limits were. I had to be patient and kind to myself because of the intense situation that I was in. I was going through a marathon of work, moving, and taking care of my wife during this time. I was asking myself to do more, but that just wasn't a good idea for me. I had to slowly rein myself in and slow down my life. The following tips are what I use to identify my limits and stop overextending myself. So here are my tips on how to know your limits and stop overextending yourself. Number 1, define your limits. So the easiest way to know your limits is to simply define them for yourself. See, normally limits are constructed based on your endurance of that thing. We usually form our limits based on our capabilities of what we can do. But who says that needs to be the case? You can define an upper limit of what you're willing to tolerate. In whatever boundary you need to set, create the limits for yourself and stick to it. But be warned not to make your limits too easy or you can get complacent. But in most cases, you can set and create your limits, and then if it's too easy for you, adjust it to be harder along the way. As time is a premium now, I have to define hourly limits for myself each and every day, and help me to rein in all the time that I'm spending on 1 or 2 activities per day. I just can't power through something in the hopes I can complete it faster if I spent more hours on it. Because in the end, that balance doesn't work for me because I have an unpredictable child. If I need to push something to another day, then I'll have to do that. Because if I don't, my other responsibilities, especially to my family, can be affected in the process. So if you need a limit, define it for yourself and stick to it. Adjust along the way. Because that way, your artificial limit can help you avoid overextension and burnout. Number 2, edge of comfort. When you're at that stage where you're still doing something normal or something not comfortable just quite yet, you're at the edge of your comfort. This means that you're learning or engaged with it in a positive way. It's not at that point where it's frustratingly hard or difficult for you. That means when you're in this state, you haven't reached your limit, but you might get there soon enough. But you also have to keep in mind the frequency and the context of that situation where you're at the edge of comfort. Expanding your comfort level is great when everything else is going smoothly in your life. But if everything in your life is at the edge of comfort, you might not have a good time going through it. You might have to dial a couple of things back into your normal routine. I had a new family member, a new job, and a new place to live, all within a span of a couple of months. I was at the edge of comfort in each of my life situations. This had the immediate effect of an extreme mental burden on myself and what I was doing on a daily basis, which was all new to me. I felt like I was pushing through so many new things that I had to be able to control and maintain each and every day. When you feel like you're always on the edge of comfort, you might be reaching your limit or getting close to it. Because handling multiple different things all at once can be extremely difficult. And you want to do that in moderation, not all at once over a sustained period of time. So this tip is to definitely help you to find out what your limits are, what you're comfortable with, and what you're getting increasingly not comfortable with. And whether or not the frequency of that is happening more often than not. Number 3, watch your energy. This may be more difficult to monitor, but look at what drains your energy and what fills up your energy. If you are doing a lot of things in life that continuously drains your energy, you might be getting close to your limit. This can afflict you in multiple different ways by not having patience, quick to anger, and not have a lot of motivation. Balance this out by filling your day with more things that fill your energy. When I was in the midst of filling out all the paperwork needed for my life changes, it was a continuously draining event on me. And I was noticing that I didn't do things that recharged my energy or batteries. Going for a walk, playing a game, or talking to friends was all things that I could have done to recharge my energy. And larger things like taking care of a fussy babies drained my energy even faster. And it was really hard to find things to recharge my energy in a constant manner during this time. But I did take a mental note of how I was feeling each day so that I was aware at least of where my energy was. This way, at least I could tell myself to slow down or shut down things if I really was exhausted. One way to watch your energy is to tally up all the things that are unpleasant in life and compare and contrast that with all the pleasant things in your life. Because more likely than not, the unpleasant things are probably draining your energy. If the unpleasant things are dominating over the pleasant things, then you might have an energy drain. Noticing that, you might want to take some time for self-care or things that refills your energy cup. Because without your energy being refilled, you're closer to reaching your limit and burning out. So watching your energy level on a day-to-day is a great way to keep from hitting your limit. Number 4, changes are subtle. As you march towards overextension or your limit, you will start to change. This can be very subtle or obvious depending on how strong your personality is. But you will change nonetheless because we are all affected by hitting our limit and burning out. When we are in an agitated state over a long period of time, it affects our personality and moods. And that can color how we view and interact with the world. When you are getting less patient and angrier, it's a sign that you might be reaching your limit, and that you might need to back off and focus on you for at least a little while. Signs that you are under intense stress and anxiety might come slowly early on, but then intensify later on. I knew that when I first started on the journey of changing up my life, that it wasn't going to be a painless process. I knew that change was going to affect me and not in a minor way. I definitely got more agitated and stressed the more things piled up on me during those months. And I was more difficult and harder to work with as time went on. It was those times that I started to understand that I was reaching my limit and burnout. So when people start to tell you that you're starting to change, you might be hitting your limit, and your state might be changing due to all the stress and anxiety you're enduring. Even though these changes might be hard for you to notice, engage the people around you to notice a difference in your own personality, to get a non-biased sense of how you are really doing. Number 5, build in rest stops. Regardless of what you're doing and when you're doing it, build in rest and recovery periods, and do these part of your daily life or routines. Scheduling a break not only helps you to rest, but also gives you a period of reflection to think over what you have done. And that reflection can also clue you in on whether or not you're overextending yourself or reaching a limit. Part of knowing your limit is not going through them again once you hit it the first time. The first time can be accidental, but the subsequent times will not be. Being proactive and getting those breaks in helps you to avoid hitting your limit. I think for me, this is something that I could have done more as I head into the latter half of 2022. I frankly just didn't take enough breaks during this time, even though I had ample opportunities for that. I thought that I could just push through without any rest or reflection. And also, what made it hard is that usually vacations are my rest period, and I just didn't have a lot of vacations during this time. So it ultimately was a weird circumstance for me, in which case I did not get enough rest. So build in those breaks whenever you can throughout your daily life. It can help regulate your daily moods, but also keep you from hitting overextension, and ultimately limit the amount of times that you'll burn out throughout your life. So here are my general thoughts on knowing your limits and not overextending yourself. I think that I'll do a future video on this, but I want to go in depth into the importance of pulling yourself away from things that you really want to focus on for self-care. There are many times in life in which we have so many obligations and we forget to focus on our self-care. In those times of being guilty, we do ourselves a disservice by not focusing on ourselves. Because if we can't keep ourselves straight, we won't be at our best dealing with others and other situations. And ultimately, it's a losing proposition to overextend ourselves continuously without rest or relaxation. Because the true cost of burnout in the end weighs more heavily than taking regular rest breaks in our daily lives. And as we know more and more about ourselves and our corresponding limits, we can better set boundaries with other people. and ultimately limit the negative or taxing interactions with others. This means that we can preserve our energy and overall have better mental health throughout our lives. Because people like life situations can be taxing and we have to figure out ways to manage or mitigate the worst of it. And in this case, knowing more about ourselves is ultimately always a good thing in our lives. So those are my tips on knowing your limits, avoiding burnout, and overextension. As the world goes through a stressful time and the demands on us are exponentially more, we have to know our limits more than ever to not only safeguard our energy from day to day, but also to avoid the dreaded burnout in our lives. For my own life, these past couple of months have really tested my limits of what I can endure, but that ultimately I need to take a step back to avoid hitting burnout. Because if I do hit my limit, neither myself or my family will benefit from that. So the main keys are to define your limits, watch your energy, and build in rest stops. With these tips, I hope you'll be able to avoid reaching your stress limits. So thank you for watching. Please leave a comment down below on what are your thoughts on burnout and what do you do to mitigate it. And I'll see you next time.